Mine works. If we leave one there like that.
Boom.
Hello.
Check.
That's just
How's it
testing.
going?
How's things, people?
All right, grab a seat, people. All you loiterers at the back.
No hiding in the corridor.
All right, who's been to Bad Voltage Live beforehand? Wow, a lot of new people here.
Who hasn't
I was going to say
been?
gluttons for punishment, all of you.
Who hasn't been? Hands up if this is your first time.
First time. Wow, great.
Well, welcome to the show that
All
never
right.
ends.
Do you have drink tickets? Yeah? Thank you for Julie for giving those
Thank you,
out.
Julie.
All right. So we're not recording the show. We do a podcast called Bad Voltage. We're not recording right now. We want to practice when we go into the recording, okay?
Yes.
So I'm going to play the music to our podcast, and we want you to cheer because we're unrepentant narcissists. All right, so hang on. This is what it sounds like. Yeah, you can nod the head if you want. This is pretty cool. Now, the key thing to remember is when it comes in, big round of applause, okay? Hang on. Here we go.
Very good.
Very nice.
Should we try again?
That was crap.
He looks skeptical.
Hey.
All right, we'll try it once more, okay? This is the real one. And by the way, before we go on, there's going to be some potentially adult themes in this show. People who've been here already are prepared to cringe, so get ready for it.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Okay. You should know where it begins now. Air drums. All right, as loud as you can go. Hang on, wait for it. Here we go! Hello, everybody!
Welcome to Bad Voltage.
How's everyone doing? All right, we're going to have a good time tonight.
We are.
Before we go on, we want to thank our sponsors, VMware. Give them
We
a big
do.
round of
Thank you very much,
applause.
VMware.
We really appreciate their support. And there isn't just VMware. There's these people as well. Round of applause.
What do we think? Give them a big shout, Scale. Thank you very much.
This has definitely been, I think, an especially stressful year for the folks at Scale. So let's give them another round of applause.
Yeah,
They
big
really-
round of applause. All right, let's get into it.
Right. So, those of you who've seen the show before will know that we talk about the news as one of the things we do. And as Jono just mentioned, this has been kind of a crap couple of weeks. And so we thought what we'd do is start off the news with something a bit lighter, some things that cheered us up, and then hopefully they'll cheer you up as well. So, Maestro, this is the first thing. This is NYU. They put together a video about copyright, put it on YouTube, banned for copyright infringement.
And I should add, every one of these, real news from the last
Yeah,
week.
these are real. We didn't make any of these up.
The irony as well is that last year when we did Bad Voltage Live, we had AC/DC playing before the show, and it got the video banned on YouTube for the live stream. So
Yeah.
we're in good company.
Everyone thinks that's funny except for Alon right there.
We were very firmly instructed by Scale this year, don't do that. So, you know, we're sorry. So this one, do people know about, I mean, I'm English, I don't know if you can tell, but do you know about Tito's vodka? Is it a thing? Right, apparently, people seem to have grasped the idea that their vodka is best used as hand sanitizer. So they spent a week on Twitter replying to people saying, Tito's vodka only contains 40% alcohol. The CDC recommends that you use something with 60% alcohol. Don't use our frigging vodka as hand sanitizer. Go to cdc.gov.
Also, don't drink bleach. This
Don't
is
drink
amazing.
Oh, this one was class. Did you see this one? So, has anyone been to a supermarket or something like that and seen empty shelves? I've seen a bunch of pictures of them, so on and so forth. And this family accidentally bought 2,300 toilet rolls. And then when they realised what they'd done, they built this.
Isn't that incredible?
I'm not sure whether it's a tribute to Game of Thrones or what, but it's excellent.
Winter is coming.
And now you've seen the inside of Jono's garage.
Right. And this one cheered me up no end. So this is Oxford, I think it was. And they have this, ancient Tudor manuscript, 500 years old, and they very carefully unseal it and remove it from its case to feel the pure history involved in this, and then found a biscuit from 50 years ago that someone had finished half of. So well done, scientific researcher from 1934.
Amazing.
Spent the whole time thinking, where was my bloody lunch? I don't get it.
Well, there has been some things that are a little bit more serious.
Yes.
How many people here have used SETI at home? It's shutting down.
Yeah, they're closing it down.
Boo.
So we should add to that a little bit. It's not actually shutting down. What they're doing
Yeah.
is shutting down the portion that runs on your machine. They
Right.
said they have enough data to use for the rest of the time they need to use
Right.
it. So they're still processing.
They've got enough
but
data
not getting new data.
to determine that they still haven't found extraterrestrial life.
Well,
Okay.
as I understand it, they spent a lot of time searching in a particular place for intelligent life and using more and more capacity on people's computers until it threatened to overwhelm the electrical... Oh, no, that's Bitcoin mining, not SETI, isn't it?
And do you remember? Some of you may remember this.
How many of you are old enough to remember this?
Look at that.
This
Yeah.
is... What's it called?
It probably starts with a K. K, SETI at home? I don't know. I remember that theme. Lovely. And then what have we got here?
So here's the next one. So the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, a hedge fund called Elegant Management, I think it was,
Yes.
is trying to push him
That's
out.
right.
And a whole bunch of people from Twitter, both Twitter, the company, and Twitter, just fans of Twitter, have started tweeting their support for him. And if you remember a couple of years ago, there was this thing called hashtivism, where it was just activism through hashtags. So I was curious what you two thought of this. Obviously in the past, social issues have really been solved by true activism, and it's been
Yes.
really important culturally. But just tweeting out a hashtag is now, I think, what some people call activism, and I want your two opinions.
Well, I have an opinion. My opinion is
surprised.
this. I agree with a whole bunch of people that going on a march with 999,999 of your fellow activists and standing there in the rain and carrying placards and attempting to move the needle on political things. I agree this is hard, but I want to be clear about this. Retweeting a hashtag and then feeling that you've done a good job is fucking not activism. Pack it in. It's infuriating.
Hashtag activism in an orange suit.
All right.
I'll give you one guess at who took this particular screenshot, given
Yeah.
the giant ad at the top.
Yeah, this is... Yeah, I like how the internet's funded.
He is noted as hating privacy in general, so
We'll get to that.
unsurprising.
The worst thing about that ad is he bought 4 of those guitars from that ad.
The problem is I literally do own the guitar, the big one on the left. So anyway, so what is this all about? Tell me about it.
So how many of you remember Facebook announcing they were doing a thing called Libra, which was going to kind of replace... Don't clap. Well,
It was
wait,
literally
hang
one
on. We'll get there. we'll get there, clapper.
And thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for coming to the show.
They came up with this idea called Libra, which was going to be cryptocurrency all over the place. And while they didn't ever say so, you did rather get the impression that they kind of thinking, well, we've got 2 billion users. That's more than any of your stupid countries. Why should we deal with your stupid currency? Let's just make up a new one. At which point the governments of the world went, no, and shut it all down.
Yeah.
But they didn't quite. So Jeremy, you know about this stuff. They've gone sort of half crypto and
So
half...
initially when this came out, it seemed like they were just going to completely drop from Calligrapha, was the wallet, I think. They were going to completely drop the Libra aspect, and now it seems like they're going to have Libra and traditional fiat currency. Given their privacy history, I don't think anyone... Does anyone really want a Facebook true cryptocurrency?
No, of course not.
It's interesting, right?
One person in the
So
back.
one hand at the back. So do any of you think it would be a good idea if Facebook knew about every purchase on Earth? I mean, I'll give you another chance to put your hand up in case I missed you. Did I miss any of you? No, right, thank you. Just
Yes.
infuriating.
All right, let's move on. So, last year we did a little segment called Fixed, and we fixed Los Angeles' traffic problem. So how many of you live in LA? Yeah, you've probably all noticed that the traffic is noticeably better in the last
You're
year.
welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank
We
you.
did that.
We fixed it for you.
And this is the way this works, is that each of us are going to give you a pitch for how we fix the problem. We did this with LA traffic, and then you can choose the winner. And we decided we need to go bigger this year. So, America. It is a beautiful nation filled with beautiful people, many of which you go to conferences like Scale. But America's got many technology challenges and opportunities ahead of it. So we've decided to nominate ourselves each individually Chief Technology Officers of the United States of America. Yeah, exactly. And we will now present you our solutions. First of all, Mr. Stuart Ian Langridge, give him a round of applause.
So I'm going to be America's next CTO, which is good, because I get to look at the problem from the outside, not being American, because you chucked all that tea into the harbour a few hundred years ago. But I think what you need from your government is openness, and you don't have it. I think source code done by the government ought to be open. This is your code, right? You should explore it, and you should use it to build great things for America, right? There should be APIs for everything the government does so you can get access to the stuff they're doing, see what your government's doing on your behalf. You should own all your own data, know where it's going, know who's using it, be able to remove it, know what it's being used for. You should own all the government's data so you can see what's going on and where it's coming from and what's being collected and what's happening. You should do all of that on completely open platforms. You should be able to see things like crime data from the FBI and stuff like that. And there should be a team of experts internally in your government telling each individual government department how to build websites that aren't rubbish, that you find easy to use. And the thing that I found really interesting when I looked into this is that if you want to see government source, it's there at sourcecode.cio.gov. And this is after all the People's Code was said by Tony Scott, who was CIO of the United States. There are APIs for everything that are open.gsa.gov. You do here own your own data because of the CCPA. Anyone like the CCPA? You can see the government's data. That is all published on an open platform called CCAN. There is crime data explorable from the FBI. There are a team of experts internally in your government called 18F. If you haven't heard of them, they're great, bottled on the GDS in the UK. And so the thing which I do as CTO of America is say, use all this stuff. It seems really great.
Not bad.
Now,
This is PlayStation 1 version of me.
go,
More hair.
Mr. John O'Bacon.
All right. So, America. The world has got many challenges, and America's been a leader in many of the ways in which we've solved these challenges. But we have many challenges still to solve. We still do not have a cure for Alzheimer's. There are many cancers that do not have a cure. We're wrestling right now with the coronavirus and how to find a vaccine for that too. And to this day, after millions of dollars of research, we don't know the impact of Taco Bell on the human digestive system. So,
we know.
Now, in the open source community, we got together and we built tools like GitHub and GitLab and Track to help write software together. We formed into communities to form groups to build code together. We've selected our leaders to lead us towards a new future. But I believe that the solution to this problem is data. And what I mean by this is that if you look at all of the problems that we've got, it's about figuring out the patterns in data. And this is what I'm suggesting. We figure out ways to make data open. We figure out places to put that data. We encourage every American to be a data scientist so they can know how to look at that and to solve those problems. They get together, they try to solve issues and find patterns in that data, and then they share those discoveries just like with open source. And what do? You get together, you refine it, you improve it, so on and so forth. We turn every American into a detective who sits in their armchair like Columbo or that weird dude from CSI Miami. And the point is that when we put all of that data from the network into this community, it's amazing what you can produce. Jack Andraka produced a test for pancreatic cancer. Olga Duchenko created a better way to sequence the genome. Ritu Raman created miniature robots that are built from biological tissue. The solution to all of this is data. Thank you.
And now our final contestant, Mr. Jeremy Garcia.
Now, as the only American on stage, I took this challenge very, very seriously. Because the truth is, data and information technology is more important than it's ever been, right? It's basically integral to almost all facets of your life. It's kind of almost an essential utility in this day and age. So that really underscores why the CTO of America these days is such an important job, and why I put so much thought into this, because as you know, with great power comes great responsibility. So we talk about, for those of you who listen to this show, we talk about privacy all the time. We talk about the importance of diligence and really treating your data like it is your data. The importance of things like encryption. So I thought, what's the best way, because I think this is the most important task, to ensure that we keep our data safe? And after careful deliberation and really thoughtfully thinking of the debates that we've had on the show, I've realized that you can't. The only thing we can do is put the genie back in the bottle. So, as CTO of the United States, my one platform is going to be getting rid of the internet. But then I took it one step further, and let's just get rid of networking altogether, because think of the bliss here, right? Mass data breaches, thing of the past. They just don't happen anymore. Online stalking and harassment, not even possible. It's going to be excellent. And really, I think I thought this over so much that there's one tiny, tiny flaw, and as much as it's going to be personally painful, I'm willing to go through it, and it is admitting to John O'Bacon that he was right all along. The best way to file your taxes is to leave them on a box on your front porch.
Give it up, Jeremy.
Alrighty, so you decide. This is a true democracy. Well, it's not. We haven't paid all of you off. What do you mean? Oh, we all know how this works. Well, we did. We got you beers. All right, first of all, we're going to do this by clapometer. Who's the loudest, okay? So we'll start with Stuart Langridge.
Okay, or do you prefer Jono's plan that you should all be data scientists?
Not good.
It sounds like, what do you think of Jeremy's plan to shut down the internet?
Thank you very much.
Sorry, people on the live stream.
I didn't realize we were at the Flat Earth conference. Wow. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right, Jeremy.
So what we would like to do here is bring up a little bit of panel and have a more serious conversation. So if Alon from Scale, Kim from CNCF, and Phil, also from Scale, can come up on stage. Philip Banks.
I didn't agree to this.
Let's all have a chat. You must have agreed. Your name's right there.
You misspelled my name, too. It's great.
The person who's pitching everyone being a data scientist can't spell this person's last name.
It's okay.
So what I wanted to discuss briefly here, and thank you for this is Philip Banks from Scale, and Banks Family Tech, Kim McMahon from CNCF, the Director of Marketing, and Alon from Scale and from Datadog. So obviously the coronavirus is a thing, but I don't just want to talk about that. Let's generalize that just a little bit and talk about crisis for a minute and the importance of open source. Scale is at its core an open source conference. So what I'm curious to know is, in times of crisis, and it seems like we could be heading towards one now, so an apropos time, what really do you see as open source's place? And by this I mean open source code, so it could be GitHub or just straight up code. It could be the open source ethos and culture of collaboration and sharing. Pretty much anything that you think is applicable here. What do you think its place is in the times of crisis? And Kim, why don't we start with you?
Oh, goody. It's been a really great week, I have to tell you. I think Wednesday feels like a couple weeks ago, frankly, with how great it's been. So I was giving this some thought First off, I can't believe we're following all the fun stuff with serious stuff. I was giving this some thought, and of course, open source, you get together and you solve technology, you take technology problems. But the big I have, and the conversations I'm having is, what the heck are we going to do to get leads when none of us are at an event for the next 6 months? And so it's interesting that you can take technology and people will share technology and develop weather models, or in this case, they're looking for cures or whatever. But all the conversations I'm having on marketing and with my members are all one-offs. And so what I realize is that I'm not really practicing what my whole foundation is doing, is that it's open source. So how can I take the ideas that we're all trying to share with what are going to be our best practices for the next couple months when all of us are sitting at home all day long in terms of getting marketing and awareness and leads, etc. So I need to practice what I preach and figure out how I am going to gather these ideas from everybody in the community and share them in an open source manner, like a GitHub repo.
No, I think the
example.
collaboration is going to be great. I think one thing, if it were to get serious, that we're all going to crave is a little bit of normalcy. And I think bringing that collaboration online, if we weren't able to leave, is going to be really, really important, just for everyone to kind of keep their sanity and keep it together. So that's, I think, a great point. Why don't we move to you, Philip? So to give some thought to this, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so Banks Family Tech is my family business with my kids that you'll see around here all the time. And we work with youth and training about data. But on the other side, I'm a consultant, and a lot of my consulting work is with the government and and private entities. And a lot of the things we're working on is, even with the LA Mayor's office, is open data. And so they've opened up a lot of the GIS, information and stuff like that. And we found that, cities like even this one, I talked to the government, the Pasadena government, and they don't even know where most of their things are here. There's no data. And so they actually had an emergency, and they couldn't even map their emergency vehicles to the thing, because they don't have data on all their stuff. But the city's in debt, so it can't. But I was talking to them about their community could actually solve the problem, because they don't have the budget for it, they don't have the money for it, they can't solve this problem themselves, so their community can solve the problem. So that's where I see, some places. I work for Caltrans in San Diego, and they're starting to do it at least 2 miles from the border, because that's, that's where they want to build a wall and stuff, so that's a whole other thing. But opening up their data and letting everybody else try to help solve these problems, and that's what we're.
So you see kind of the open data and open standards really being integral as we go into a crisis?
Yeah, because more than the minds that are there to solve these problems, because the minds that are there are usually government jobs. They're deeply rooted. They've been there for 30 years. Same mindset for forever.
Sure. Awesome, thank you. And Alon, moving to you, you've been involved in open source communities and open source code and open source conferences for the better part of 2 decades at this point. So I'm guessing you have opinions here. What's your take?
Well, one is don't try to run an open source conference or any conference during a crisis. It causes some stress. But no, I think a lot of what we're talking about here in terms of sharing tools and sharing data is really important. I'm curious to see, there's already a number of open source projects I'm seeing coming together around collecting data and doing research around COVID and Corona this week. There's some projects up on GitHub called Auspice and Augur and a few other ones that are sort of starting to work on that collection, and I'm not an expert in that space, so I won't speak to them. You should check them out. But if you look at past crises like when the hurricanes hit Haiti and the Dominican Republic and some of the other places in the Caribbean, what did they do? Well, they all went to OpenStreetMaps and started developing open source, crowdsourced maps of the regions so that they could. Because it turns out that Atlas guide that was printed like 100 years ago doesn't work anymore. Those streets got washed away. turns out Google Maps, not a live satellite view of your backyard. So like being able to have people wander around and collect that data was helpful. But also things like communication, right? One of the most important things when you're in a crisis is how do we track what work needs to get done? How do we collaborate? How do we get in touch with each other? How do we share that data or our experiences? And so there's all kinds of tools in the open source community around that type of collaboration. And so I think we can support all this. One idea we had many years ago, and we've not yet implemented it, but maybe somebody else wants to next year at scale. Watch me pawn off some work on you all, is something called DisasterCon, right? Every year we would love to do an event, a track, or an event with some folks out there where we get together folks that are disaster responders, folks from the open source community, and spend a day talking about the tools that we need and how we can collaborate in turning everything that we've done into things that can support disaster areas. So that's my challenge to you. This time next year, March 2021 in this building, there should be a room called DisasterCon, and one of you all should be running it.
That's an excellent, I like you're getting the crowd in there. So one thing that I think is great about the open source community and ecosystems around open source really is this panel right here, because you went for collaboration, Kim. Phil, you really went for more open data and standards, and you went more on the code side, and it's that diversity of thought and different ideas that I think really makes open source communities awesome and fun to participate in, so appreciate all three of you coming on stage. I want to end on a little bit of a lighter note, though. This is the 18th scale, obviously an awesome accomplishment, so congratulations. Kim, we'll once again start with you. What's it been like on the participation side? So, you know, we have two organizers here. You're here on behalf of CNCF. How have things been for you participating in Scale?
This is one of my favorite conferences because it's, well, if you know our conferences, they tend to have a lot of people and they're pretty scheduled. This is a lot more chill. It has a lot more free time for networking. And it's always one of my favorites to come to. Excellent.
Now, two questions for you who have both been participating in Scale for a very long time, since the beginning. What's been the biggest surprise for you, Phil, in the time you've been participating?
The biggest what?
Surprise.
Surprise for me. Oh, the biggest surprise. That's a hard one. Every year for me is just like, I'm winging it. I love it. You know, this is home for me. You know, my daughter is 18 because at the very first Scale, my wife was pregnant at the reception desk with her daughter. So Scale goes up in age with my kids. So
very cool.
Every year, I'm like, bring it, let's do something new. Everybody's hitting me like, what is Scale doing this year? I was like, I don't even know yet. I don't even read all this stuff. I just ready to dive in. So what's the biggest one? Man, every day is a surprise every year. What we're gonna do.
I'm gonna give the same question to you, but I'm gonna make it a little more difficult in that you can't say Corona.
No, I think the biggest surprise for me is just that we've been doing it as long as we had. When we got together and started this the first time, I mean, honestly, most of us were 18, maybe a year or two older, maybe a year or two younger, but I mean, the conference is legitimately as old as I was when we started it. So congratulations, Scale, on your becoming an adult, I guess. So I think most of us thought like, we'll do it for a couple of years, it'll be fun. You know, we don't have enough tech conferences here in the LA area. We'd like to have something that all of our, heroes and, the folks that we look up to in the open source world would come out and speak at. That'll be easy. If we do it, they'll show up. It was a little harder than that. But the fact that it lasted this long, I would say is a surprise. On a more modern topic, I would say I don't think I've ever thought I would buy as much hand sanitizer as I spent the last week sourcing from all over the world. That was another surprise to me as well. So.
Fair. So I'll wrap it up with that question, and I very much agree with Kim, one of my favorite conferences. I think this is my 12th or 13th, so it's always a great time. Once again, Philip, Kim, Alon, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give these three a round of applause. All right.
Oh, Jesus, this is my bit.
This is going to get fruity.
Right. So, some of you have seen us do this show before, and some of you have not, but we have a thing called Wrong in 60 Seconds. Now, this is your chance. If you are annoyed by something, we will give you 1 minute of free airtime to stand on this stage and tell all of Scale how you feel and why. Right?
Yeah. Who's annoyed by something?
I was going to say, and for those of you who have seen
Yeah.
this before, the bar here is exceedingly high.
I mean, no rage is too small. No anger is too big. Oh, yes, and, you're quite right.
You see? Told you this was going to happen.
I said to him, put an extra slide in with this in, because otherwise I'll forget. Right? There is a prize. We spoke to the Azure Sphere people, and they gave us an Azure Sphere development kit, which is actually really cool. And I suggested that we shouldn't offer it as a prize because I would like to take it home, but I'm told we have to give it as a prize. So, thank you very much to the Azure Sphere people. So,
Yes.
what I want you to do is, if you feel you have a subject which is close to your heart, something which makes you furious or delighted, and you want to enlighten the Scale crowd, and you're not Matt Garrett, put your hand up.
Put your hand up if you want to rant about something. All right, I'll do this side. You do that
Right,
side.
okay.
Okay. Who?
So, my fluffer John O'Bacon will
All
come
right.
and find you.
What's your topic?
Self-driving cars.
Okay, self-driving cars. Interested? All right. Yeah, okay. Who else? No?
I've got 3. Training the trainers, availability and outsourcing responsibility, and public speaking, not for introverts.
Public speak. Okay. All right.
I think we got a couple over here.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, Matt's allowed to go. Go on.
Everything as a service.
All right. There's definitely some interest.
Okay.
Community.
Ha! Yes. Right, Matt Garrett on first.
Can we switch this mic off? Anyone else? Rant? Oh, someone at the
Oh,
back.
we got any other hands up?
All right. Okay. Do this dude first.
Get ops.
Ups. No.
Nothing's really new.
Nothing's new.
Nothing's new. Do we want that? No? Okay.
All right.
There's one more hand, I think. Someone being pointed.
Who else?
Hand at the back. Hand at the back.
Oh, over here. Sorry. Oh, no. I'm scared.
We have one here.
Because I technically don't work in the tech industry, I'm actually animal health care. Something that's really close to me that I've seen over and over is people not vaccinating their animals.
Yeah. Yeah, we like that one. Oh, and one at the back.
All right, here's
Who
another
could
one.
that be at the back?
My topic is airport bathrooms.
Airport bathrooms?
Okay.
All right.
So we'll definitely have airport bathrooms, and we'll definitely have everything as a service, I think. And animal health care and vaccination, and
One more.
and community, I feel.
Okay, so you 4, can you come to the
So
stage?
if I could get the 4 of you to come up to this side of the stage, please. And then we will bring you on stage, and we will ask you to give your name, and then we'll time you for a minute.
Okay. So, let's have him go last.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So, do you want to come over here, say your name, and then you'll see the countdown on the screen over here. You got 60 seconds. Feel free to be loud as well, as loud as you want.
Hi, I'm Romy. You guys probably also know me as the OpenSUSE Chameleon. All right.
Go.
So one of the things I am very passionate about is actually vaccinating your animals. I'm not talking about your kids. I'm not a big human lover. One of the things is that, yeah, I know. So in my over a decade of working with animals, I have seen animals die a horrible, horrible death because of a vaccine that could be easily administered. But, you know, people say it's too expensive. It's actually really cheaper to vaccinate your animal and not go through the whole hospitalization. These are viruses, not bacteria. Viruses take a heck of a lot more time to work its way through the system, and the treatment that your pet is actually getting is purely symptomatic. And many of these animals are super young, so their immune systems are not developed, so they need those vaccines. So by all means, vaccinate your animal, talk to a vet. Please don't go to, don't go to Walmart for the vaccines. Bad idea, bad idea.
Give it up, Romy! Okay, our next speaker, Mr. Clint Byram.
Hey everybody, I'm the guy who spent 30 minutes ranting earlier today. Just warming up. Yeah, so I'm just tired of this everything as a service. I know it's not 2011 and we already went through that back then. We were like, this is gonna be terrible. Guess what? It is! How many API keys do you have to rotate when one person leaves your company? Anybody? Anybody under 30? Like, oh my God. Especially if you're at a startup where you're talking about buy versus build, buy versus build. We're not buying anything. We're just giving them money and our data, and what do we get back? I don't know, maybe a service? I can't stand this anymore. I mean, I got into open source to have control of my data, my code, and my time, and I don't have control of any of that anymore. All I do is just call the vendor, please, 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 can I have my data back? I don't know, did you pay your bill yet? Well, I don't know, I'd pay it if I get my data. I go around all day. I'm sorry if this is not for you. This is not for me anymore either. When are we shutting down the internet? I'm ready.
Give it up! And our next contestant, give us your name and what you want to talk about.
My name is Hannah. I'm going to talk about airport bathrooms. Not airplane bathrooms. We all know those are disgusting. I spend 50% of my job on a plane, and I have a rollaway case, naturally, and so you go to the bathroom when you're getting ready to go on an airplane for 13 hours, which is my average flight time. So I'm like rolling in, and this is like the size of a bathroom stall. Men, maybe you can't relate, but women, maybe you'll feel my pain. You're like rolling your suitcase, you get in, and you're like, okay, this door opens in, not out, so let me like shuffle my suitcase. Oh no, it hit a toilet, back up, inch, slightly, left, right. Okay, I got it. How do I close the door? Oh shit, okay. Sorry, child show. All right, finally get the door closed. Oh crap, now how do I get out after you've crapped, I presume, not before. Okay, so open the door slightly, hit suitcase. Why don't these doors just open outwards? Design problems. That is my rant. That's it.
Thank you very much. And our final contestant probably needs no introduction, so I should just say here is Mr. Matt Garrett, Dr. Matt Garrett.
So I was going to stand here and talk about how really something I felt was amazingly important was how free software and the concept of open source has actually evolved over time. The concept that Stallman first presented in the 80s did not match what the BSD community already believed free software or open source, whatever, was actually about. And how today our idea that there is one specific concept that matters most is outdated. But instead, I'm going to briefly say that the best thing about open source is community. The idea that people here, no matter who they are, no matter what their background is, no matter what they are, what prejudices exist against them in the outside world, are able to come together, build something better. And standing here, looking at all of you, seeing an amazing array of diversity of age, background, race, gender, all of that is beautiful. And so I'm standing here, and I want to say from the very bottom of my heart, to whoever thought the best way to celebrate this was to bring up an access point called Trump 2020. Fuck you.
Okay, if I can put my presenters back to the stage. Wow.
The first 58 seconds of that, I did not think that's how that was going to end. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. I was on the edge of my shoe.
Should we have everyone line up?
All right.
Yeah. So if I could get you to sort of
So once again,
line
the
up across
audience,
the
this
stage,
is up
the four of you.
to you to decide.
Please.
Yes, you get to decide who's going to win the Azure Sphere. All right, go on then, Langridge.
Okay, so we're clapometering this, yeah?
Clapometer.
I don't know why I'm talking into two microphones.
You are talking into it.
So, we'll have
Muppet.
cheers one at a time, please. So, our first contestant. Give it up!
Wow.
That's a strong start. It's a strong start.
Like a literal standing ovation. Oh my God.
I don't even know if we need to bother with the rest. Our second contestant.
Sympathy clap.
Thank you. Thank you for rearranging yourselves. Our third contestant. And our fourth contestant.
I believe we have a winner.
We have a winner.
Okay, we very definitely have a winner. I would like to say thank you very much for braving the scale audience. To Matthew, to Hannah, to Clint, and to Romy. Give it up for Romy.
Yeah. All righty. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. So we're going to have a little bit of a discussion, the three of us, for a few minutes. And we wanted to talk about, we're in LA, right? And there's lots of people in this city, very nice people. Seems like a lot of people have got rubber lips and fast cars and big houses. And
We're also in Pasadena.
we are in Pasadena as well, which is, from what I can tell, where I live, just further south.
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, but it's where I live, but further east.
We're not geographers. So we want to talk about something that is plaguing the industry right now, which is reboots, okay? Ocean's 11 was rebooted. A lot of people don't know that this came out in the 60s or whenever it was, and obviously there was another version that came out recently. Ghostbusters was rebooted. Twice.
Yeah.
You're right, that's totally true, yes. And I actually quite liked that one, personally. And there's about 500 Spider-Man reboots as well, from what we can count.
Right. They're going to keep remaking them until one of them's good.
So we were thinking, what would happen if you rebooted open source? Like, what should it look like today? Like, I got into open source in 1998, and there was no cloud back then. It wasn't on every device that you can find now. So what would open source look like today? What do you guys think?
So I think the key with a reboot really is if it started all over again, maybe what would you do different or what would you change? So I think where I would start is being more inclusive and making diversity more important right from the very beginning. Because I think that would really have gotten us a lot further, a lot quicker, and would have behooved us and should have happened long before now.
Yeah, the diversity scene in the reboot seemed to happen way too late. So if we could put that into the beginning of the reboot, that would be quite nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, from my point of view, enlarging on that slightly, that to me is the thing. We appear to have decided very early on as a community, as an open source, free software community, before most of us even got into it, that we bake into the DNA of the thing that pretending that the code was all that mattered was enough.
Yeah.
By saying, yeah, the code is all there is, and that's all we judge everything on, and then believing that we could do that was fine. And it's a similar kind of thing to science, in my opinion. Slightly controversial, this, but there's a general thing in science that scientific discovery is a good thing in and of itself. And if it's put to bad uses, you say, well, that's nothing to do with me. I just did scientific discovery.
Right.
But I'm not actually sure that's right. I think there may be reasons to think about what use a thing is going to be put to while you're building it. If you're building facial recognition software, then saying, oh, well, the fact that the government decided to scan everyone's face is nothing to do with me, I just do algorithms, is avoiding the problem. And to some extent, I think this may be the same with issues of how we build a community, how we treat people in that community, how we work with underrepresented people in that community. And I think if I were to reboot open source, I'd build that into the DNA of open source at the beginning, that it's more important to make sure that we're not turning people away than to say, well, it's all just about the code and whatever else happens is nothing to do with us. I feel like we've internalized the wrong message. And now if you try and bring that up, people will say, but that's not what the free software definition says. And it's like, yeah, but this is a reboot, right?
Right.
I get to think about...
I think part of it is that there should be an acknowledgement that technology problems are difficult, but human problems are always more difficult.
Yep.
And appreciating that and really working to that.
Well, and that's kind of along the lines of what I was thinking. This is going to be thoroughly unsurprising, my viewpoint on this.
Is it going to have the word community in it?
It is indeed.
Most predictable thing ever.
I think for many of us, when we first got involved in open source, it was kind of alluring but complicated at the same time. It was like a puzzle, particularly if you were starting an open source project. There was nothing really particularly written down about, okay, well, how do you build this code? How do you bring in contributors? How do you attract documentation writers and translators? And how do you set up your website? And all of this litany of stuff that you have to figure out. And a lot of people had to figure that out as they went, and lots of people have written that down and done talks at conferences like Scale and everything else. And I wish that was baked in at the beginning, because I think there's many people out there who've had a go at open source and they've failed. And it's not that they were bad or their idea was bad. It was just, it was too hard. There was too much to figure out. It's like a Rubik's Cube. And I think some people have had the appetite to do that, and some people won't have the appetite to do that. So I wish there was more of a choose your own adventure guide baked into it. The license is great, but that's not enough. We need more than that. And that's what I think we should bake into open source.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is obviously a subject which will go on for a long time. Discussions about what we could and should and would do. But I'd like to see people talking about this more. And then if someone pops up and says, oh, but that's not what the free software guidelines say, don't let them shut down the conversation, because the whole point of open source is that it belongs to us. If we want to decide what it means today and decide that maybe that's not quite the same thing that it meant in 1984, we are allowed. And we're starting to see little discussions about that. Should we have different licenses?
Right.
And I think maybe that discussion's not a bad thing. So I hope as a community we don't shy away from that, and instead we embrace what we want it to be today.
Question, do you think that there's been a lot of talk recently about licensing, especially software within the context of the cloud and cloud service providers? Do you think that you can solve that problem? Because there's a lot of contention in the industry right now and in the community right now around what is okay, because some people have the argument, sure, you should be able to open source this project and make the code available and everybody can use it, but then there is another argument, which is, if I'm a business and I've got it under that license, I'm getting my lunch eaten by potentially some of these large cloud service providers. What do you think? Because that needs to be figured out in this.
Do I think that's answerable in the 19 seconds we have left in this segment?
I think we can fit it in.
I don't think so.
Come on, Jeremy, fix it for us. What do you think? You're the smartest one of the three of us.
Such a low bar.
Hey!
Actually, that's not fair to Stuart. Honestly, I think it's a good segment for the show. I would like to discuss it in length.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, can we do it on the next show?
Huh?
Can we do this on the next show?
We can do it on the next show.
Okay.
Does that mean we have to do a next show after this?
So now you all have to listen to the next show.
Yeah, listen to Bad Voltage.
You do. So go to badvoltage.org and hit subscribe, or what do you do to podcasts?
All right. So now it's time for the game show portion of the show. Always entertaining and one of my favorites. So once again, we'd like to call up some folks that have agreed for some reason to participate. So Julie from PagerDuty and Matthew Garrett, who's now not in his seat, friend of the show. Oh, there he is.
All right.
So while you're going to need a beer for this. He wants to be clear, let us carry him on stage in a sack. So this is a game show that I personally had never heard of. Can I just get a hand raise? Have you heard of this show? Okay. So it turns out it's very British and was suggested by my two British compatriots here. So I'm going to explain it very, very briefly, and then we'll get started. So basically, I asked all four participants before the show started to tell me a little bit of a story about themselves, somewhat related to tech, that they felt was, a little bit humorous. And then I wrote down a one-sentence description of that on these cards here. I'm going to hand those cards out now. They're going to read my summary of what they said. And then the other team is going to have the opportunity to ask a couple questions. In the end, what the point of the game show is to ascertain whether the story is true or whether the story is false. And with that, we'll get started.
If some of you wondered why I just draped my jacket on the laptop, it's because he prepared the deck earlier on, and it's got the answers in the deck. And we know that especially him are sneaky, and they're going to look at the screen. So that's the reason why we...
Given that he's been here since the beginning of the show, he is already on your laptop, saw everything he wanted to see, and deleted the rest.
I agree.
So
all right.
Here is my summary of what you said.
Okay, I'm first, right? We got that up. All right. All right, so I read this card. And this is either true or false, people, so make your own decision. I lectured the creator of a very popular programming language about how to create a programming language.
Okay, so we now get to ask questions, right? So, okay, here's my question, Jono. Why are you such a moron?
It is alarmingly on brand.
Who was this person?
This person
Tell the story.
This person was Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I went to a conference, well, it's not really a conference, an event in Sebastopol called Foo Camp once. And I was staying in the hotel, because I'm not a camper. And I went to breakfast that morning, and I was just sat down, eating my granola, because I'm in California. And this guy sat opposite me, and we just get chatting. And around that time, I had grandiose visions of creating a compiler. I was reading about people building all of this. I'm a terrible developer, by the way. So the reason why I thought I could build a new version of GCC was completely ridiculous. So I downloaded the source code to, I think it was GCC, and read a couple of the README files in there. And one file was about something called tokenizing, which is something that people do in interpreters and compilers. Shut up, okay? So I read this text file, and I thought I had a handle on this. So I'm sat down, and I said to this guy, like, what do you do? And he said, well, I kind of work in programming languages. It's very understated. And I just started lecturing him about what I'd read in the text file about tokenizing. And he was like, oh, okay. And then we finished, and I said, nice to meet you, my name's Jono. And he said, yeah, nice to meet you, my name's Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python. And I shrank into my...
So any additional questions?
Yeah, I've got an additional question. My question is, for Matt Garrett, is he now qualified to be a Linux kernel developer?
Right.
Where was this, did you say?
This was at Foo Camp in Sebastopol in
I was going to say, I have a question for you. Are you going to let her ask a question?
Here's the thing. I feel like he said that he was having granola because he's a Californian, but wouldn't that be avocado if he was telling the truth? I just...
Sometimes it's the details that'll trip you up.
We literally ate avocado toast this morning.
So this is a true story and not part of the show, but I walked into a cafe down here, and they had pomegranate, rosemary, fennel, avocado toast. And as someone from New York, I was like, have to try this ridiculous California thing. It was annoyingly delicious. I was a little angry how good it was.
So there you go. Any other questions?
Back to the show. Any other questions?
You can ask questions as well.
I asked about the avocado, which I really feel is the tell.
Were you wearing flip-flops at the time?
I was not yet into my flip-flop phase.
So what do we think? True or false?
I mean, I kind of feel like...
I'll give you a few seconds to deliberate.
Well, ask yourself, think about this. John O'Bacon, world-famous speaker, jet-setter. Can you imagine him doing something that fucking stupid?
Oh, easily. But the question is, can you imagine somebody not knowing who he is?
Did not even hesitate.
I got to tell you, I think it's the truth.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to go with you on truth because...
Okay.
So you're going to go true.
You're going to true.
Does
Can
the
I
crowd,
just
what do you,
counter
true,
that
false?
with
Anyone?
the question of, do you really believe that John O'Bacon knows the word tokenize?
Oh.
Having seen his code, no, I don't.
That is a good point.
Honestly, I think he does, but he pronounced it toke-nize.
So they have guessed true, and the answer is?
It was true.
Really?
That
It was
story,
so
for those of you who
Hang on.
do not know Mr. Bacon, alarmingly on brand.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Really? Yeah, it was true.
So next up, we have Julie, who's joining us from PagerDuty. Thank you very much again. Here is my summary of the story that you told me earlier.
I inadvertently terrified a client with a monster clown.
A monster clown.
With a
See where the other
monster
mic is?
clown.
So, Jono, Mr. Garrett, do you have any questions?
Hang on. All right. So you terrorized a client. Explain who the client was before we get to the monster.
No. Client is definitely anonymous. Just
I don't
client,
mean like
a client.
I don't mean it was Velveeta Cheese
The client's name
Corporation.
was the client.
The client.
Okay. So how did this happen? What did you have a clown come to an office or something?
Well, see, I had this coworker. We're gonna call him Steven for safety.
Right.
And he used to terrorize me because I was notorious for leaving my computer unlocked. And I would come back to pictures of Teletubbies on my computer screen, which absolutely is terrifying.
Like on the, wallpaper type stuff?
Like, yeah, the background, the wallpaper.
They are terrifying.
And so I really stalked him for about 2 months to see if he would ever leave his computer unlocked. And one day it happened. He left it unlocked. He stepped into a cube 2 down, and I snuck into that cube, and I was paying so much attention to where Steven was that I wasn't 100% paying attention to the computer in front of me as I snuck in and changed that background to Pennywise, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
it was amazing.
Which is objectively terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Much more terrifying than Teletubbies, or equally as, at least. Yeah. And then I snuck back out, but what I didn't realize was that it was a VM of the clients whose background I was changing. So yeah, that happened.
Oh, it burns.
Questions?
Did the client respond? Did they find this out?
He was able to revert it before the client
So there was no
saw
consequences?
it. No consequences.
Oh.
Well, consequences for me.
What operating system was the laptop running?
Linux.
How did you change the background?
Right-clicking.
The pragmatist in Matthew comes out immediately.
Matthew's like, you didn't change it with DD? What's wrong with you?
I just don't know that Linux is reliable enough for right-clicking on anything today.
So we've learned that Linux is crap and the internet should go away. You're welcome, everyone.
You're welcome. Additional questions before you confer?
So why did you think that Pennywise was an appropriate response to the Teletubby? Is there not a middle ground, like a Barney or something like that?
Is there a middle ground?
No, there isn't.
Okay, thank you.
That's fair enough. Okay. What do you think?
I don't know.
It sounds like bollocks to me.
I dislike calling people liars.
No, you don't.
Liar.
What do we think? Do you think it's true or false? False? I'm kind of edging in the direction. What do you think?
Leaning false?
Much as I hate to disagree with the community, I lean towards believing her. I feel like we should have more trust in people.
So we're
Ooh, it sounds like we have a false and a true. Who wins? Who wins?
Well, Jono wins, obviously.
I don't have a coin. Okay, I was going to toss a coin. Let's go with false, because the audience thinks it's false.
Going to go with false. And was the story Julie was telling true or false?
Oh!
Yeah, that
It was
happened.
true.
It did.
You should believe in people more.
Ooh. Okay.
All right, so next up is the story that Matt told me earlier. Here is my summary of said story.
Okay, so my story is that I was giving a presentation, actually not far from here, a few years ago, and there was a huge crowd of people, and I was at a Linux conference, and I decided to give my presentation using a Mac, and nothing worked. Sorry, that is not actually my story, that's reality. That's Jono.
That is a true story.
Thank you. Dick.
Apologies.
Okay.
My first Debian installation involved a mishap with an editor, being blackout drunk, and waking up with no idea how I'd fixed my computer.
Questions?
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean questions? It's just obviously the truth.
It is on brand.
So when
Have
was
you
this?
seen me blackout drunk?
When have I seen you? What, this year? When was this?
1998. Halloween.
What was the code name of the version of Debian you were using?
So I was actually confused because I'd read on Slashdot that Debian 2.1 Slink was frozen, and I thought that meant it was good.
Oh, you were very wrong.
I mean, what were you drinking?
Don't remember.
That's what being blackout drunk works like. I imagine.
She's testing.
She is testing. What? So you just woke up the next morning and it all worked, and to this day you don't know how?
I think there was a hex editor. I do know what went wrong. I broke it before I was drinking. So I remember exactly what I broke it with.
Ooh. So the only other question I have is, if this was 1998, was that the last time someone got a Debian installation working?
Shots
You know,
fired.
I believe that at that point in history, I might actually have been the first person to successfully install
There
Debian.
it is, you see. I'm sorry, I'm an Ubuntu guy. I mean, check it out. Look. Questions?
I don't believe him.
What do you think?
I just don't.
You know
I don't.
She's not feeling it.
I'm not feeling it. I mean, the blackout drunk, but I don't know what I drink. I know you say that's how it works, but that's how I know what to stay away from drinking forever.
Honestly, I feel the idea of Matthew Garrett ever managing to drink enough to be blackout drunk to be somewhat implausible, having gone drinking with the guy. No, I think false.
I think false. What do you think?
What do you think, audience? False?
False.
We're hearing a lot of falses.
False.
So we're going
Wait,
false.
What do we say, bollocks in your language?
Yes. I believe that to be bollocks, Dr. Matt Garrett.
So did he fix a Debian installation blackout drunk? Once again, you should trust people more. Also, I would trust him blackout drunk more than him bone sober. So the last story you told me earlier today.
Oh, so this is my
Thank you.
go, yes. Yes, I told you this story.
You did.
I certainly not describe it like this, you little shit.
I think that is an accurate reflection of said story.
Fuck you. Okay. It didn't say this in the rehearsal. Right. I confessed to Mark Shuttleworth, the creator of Ubuntu, that I indulge in, air quotes, self-gratification several times a week.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and presume you have questions.
I have certain questions, and they're not necessarily the ones you're going to expect.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with, I pretty much believe that in that scenario, either before or after your statement, Mark Shuttleworth told you how many times he self-gratified himself. I would like to know that number.
I don't believe I'm obliged to tell the truth on ancillary questions.
I just want to make sure that we're all people from many parts of the world here. When you say, I don't want you to say anything too specific, but when I think what you mean by self-gratification, is it what you think I think what
Yes,
you mean?
yes it is.
So how did this happen?
I forgot. Right, so the story, I started working for Canonical. I was working on Ubuntu One, which was the online service, right? And at the same time, I was in the process of getting divorced. And after about 6 months, the company were going to Budapest, I think it was. And Mark has a plane, and occasionally he lets people fly on it. He invited me to fly with him from to Budapest. And so I'm like, oh, I get to go on the plane. How cool is this?
I didn't get to go on the plane. Was it good?
The plane was good, roughly right up until this moment, and then it went wrong.
Okay,
So I'm on the plane, and Mark invites me for conversation and a bit of lunch. And we started off talking about how I was settling into the company and how I was getting on and so on. And then he said he'd heard that I just got divorced. And was I okay? And I'm like, yeah, thinking, this is rather nice of you, big boss, you know. And so he asked a couple of questions about that. And then he asked, what did he say? He phrased it as something like, you know, how's your love life now? Are you recovering from that? And we started talking about, after he first made his money, he spent some time out partying, shall we say. And we were talking about that, and I got this whole kind of all lads together vibe, you know. So he's talking about that, and then he asks about girlfriends and my love life and so on. And the thing I know now, but didn't know then, was that Mark Shuttleworth context switches really fast in conversations and expects you to know that he's done that and to keep up. But I didn't know that then. So, we're having a conversation about my love life, and then he says, so, how often do you release? And I went, well, it's a bit of a personal question, but he's the boss, and we're all mates, you know, all lads together. So I'm like, I don't know, a few times a week, sometimes I'm tired, or... And he said, no, I meant, how often do you release Ubuntu 1? And that's what happened. And then I burst into flames out of embarrassment.
So, question. Were you invited on the plane after that?
I consider myself bloody lucky I wasn't booted out the door of the plane while it was in midair. I have not been on the plane since then.
What, when you say... First of all, you're an idiot.
I didn't know.
Who just walks up to someone and says, how often do you release?
He
People
he
talking
didn't
about
just walk up.
software.
We had this whole conversation.
But more importantly, when you said what you said, how did he respond to this information?
Honestly, and this can sound a bit implausible, it's hard for me to remember because I appear to have mostly repressed the memory of the flight. But he was, I mean, the man's a consummate professional, right? So I will admit, he looked a bit shocked when I answered that question. But then after that, he was kind of very straight-faced. And then he was very straight-faced with me for the next 5 years.
Any follow-ups, or you want to confer?
So the problem I have here is that this is precisely something based on everything I know about Stuart I would believe.
Exactly.
Thanks,
It's
pal.
a little bit too perfect.
It's almost too Stuart, is what you're saying.
It's like if you could distill Stuart, and if you trained a machine learning model on Stuart,
It would spit out that card.
this story would come out.
It does. I have to say, I can completely see this happening.
Thanks, pal. You're
It's
my
just-
pal.
There are stories, shall we say, that have not been shared on this
So
stage.
we're going to go true, we're going to go false.
What do you think?
And if we get this wrong, we lose. If we get this right, we draw. So really, it doesn't matter. We're not going to win.
We are not going to win. I don't want his righteous indignation, though.
I don't know.
I'm on the
Stuart has demonstrated a willingness to talk about his most impressive social disasters. So
Cheers, pal.
I feel like having gone all in on we should trust people, I feel like maybe we should trust him, except on the other hand, would you trust someone wearing that suit?
Would you trust someone wearing this suit?
All right, so do you think
You're my people.
do you think it's true or false? True?
A lot of thumbs up in the crowd, couple thumbs down over here.
False?
Ooh, it's a pretty mixed crowd.
I think it's true, personally.
I know. My only real concern is whether Mark Shuttleworth would ever show that much interest in other human beings.
Oh, jeez.
Concerns.
Ouch. Okay.
Wow, shots
Put
fired
that to one
for the
side.
second time.
All right, let's go true.
So you're going to go true. And I will point
true.
out, somewhat to my surprise, it's been true, true, true.
No.
So is this story true or false?
100% fictional. Yes, indeed. In no way did I do that. And I want to be clear about this. If you buggers now go out and start telling this story like it happened, I will be really cross because I made it up.
Hashtag definitely happened. So that means this team is the winner. Congratulations, Julie and Stuart.
Hey,
again
we're
for
the winners.
participating.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
Thank you very much.
That was great.
I do find it interesting that I said, give me any story you want. It could be true, it could be false. And 3 people picked true stories, which is a bold move.
Yeah, I know. It's like, did you read the name of the game? It's called Would I Lie to You?
I don't know how you come up with this stuff. It's disturbing. All right, we're done, everyone. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for coming.
Stay safe. Have a wonderful scale. We'll see you next
Ladies
time.
and gentlemen,
Thanks again to the
we've been
Scale
Bad
organizers.
Voltage, you've been Scale. Thank you very much, and good night.